Stay tuned. Today, I sit down with Andy Bovender, who shares how he was able to build a 34-person team that operates out of 5 different cities. As always, I'm your host and referral partner out of San Francisco, Shawn Kunkler. Andy, thanks for joining me today. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, let's dive right in really quick to get the listeners up to speed in a couple sentences. Who are you and what do you do?
So, Andy Bovender, a founding Compass agent in the Carolinas and multiple markets. I'd say my superpower is authenticity. I love helping people. I'm authentic. You see what you get. I love life. Have fun. There you go. There's my couple sentences for you.
Love it. You should throw in humble because you guys crush it in 5 cities. And I read the stats on your page. You also have helped 5,000 families, which is just, those are staggering numbers. So,
well, that puts bags under the eyes. I mean, that's why you grow a team, so you don't have to do 5,000 anymore. You can have some helpers.
That's incredible. And briefly chatting with you before this, it sounds like, I want to say, in addition to your other superpower is building out teams.
So I would say absolutely. That's my love. I love to build teams. I love to put in the work and see what happens from it.
Yeah.
It's almost like planting the plant and see what grows, and just having that pride. And I came from teams. My whole background is teams. So I've never been a part of anything other than teams from a work.
When you say your background's teams, what do you mean? What was your background prior to real estate?
So I'm one of 4 kids. So I feel like that was one thing.
That's a team.
That's a team. So you're either battling your siblings or you're working together against mom and dad, trying to get the best vacations, whatnot. But anyway, after that, it's been baseball. My whole background is sports.
Really?
My dad was professional sports. My brother was a kind of semi-pro professional golfer. My background's professional baseball. So I've always played baseball since I was 4 years old till I was 27. So real estate came within a year after being in baseball. So I've always had to work with different team people, egos, personalities, and on a baseball team. I'm not sure how much you follow baseball, but if the team's not working well together, you don't win. There's a lot of individual sports where you can win, but on baseball, one player is not going to win that game.
It's true. I mean, yeah, you're right. Not all of them, not all the sports. Some of the sports can get carried by a player, whereas baseball, it's very reliant on everybody because it just depends on what's happening at that moment. That is so interesting. And with any sports and any team, you are always dealing with a lot of egos, and typically the stronger people get in performing, there's more to contend with. I'm saying that as delicately as possible.
Oh yeah. Well, real estate to me is probably as close as I've been to something that is baseball to a T.
Sure.
You have the agents that get successful and they go big ego. And then you have the agents that get successful and just keep getting successful and they're humble and they're just the same person. And in baseball, the same thing. You've got the superstar that has to show off on camera, and you've got the team players that are humble and just want to play.
It's true. Yeah. I mean, I see it within my own market in San Francisco. There's the highly successful top performers who just kind of, you don't hear about them, but they just keep doing what they're doing at a very high level. And there's the other ones who everybody knows.
Yep.
And it's fine. There's no wrong answer. That's the beauty of this sport. It's fascinating. I think now up to date, I've sat down with 70 top performing agents to do this podcast. The most fascinating data point that I've had is I would say 90% have some sort of sports background, whether it was college, professional, semi-pro. It's astonishing to me that how many are hubbed into that. Or do you see that individually on your team as well?
So that's certainly one of our interview questions is what's your sports background? We don't hire for sports, but if they talk about team sports, that's already a big plus. We don't hire for, we hire for culture and hard work. And I know the
Yeah.
hard work comes from sports. I know they had to get pretty far in sports, you had to be hardworking. And if you're on a true team sport, you had to believe in a team culture. So I would say on our team, I'd say most of them do play sports. Some haven't, but the ones that really excel are the ones that have kind of some level of sports background. It's dealing with personalities. It's almost like getting up, striking out. You have to come. You lose the game. You come back the next day. You got to do it again. So it's like losing a listing appointment. Do you go home and waller around about it, or do you show up the next day and learn from your mistakes and get better? So I do think sports carry so much weight in this industry.
You know, my stepson, who's 17, took up fencing a few years ago, and if you're not familiar with the sport, in the beginning, in the early days, you just, pardon my French, but you eat a lot of shit. Like you lose a lot. And the way they do ranking, they do it in pools. So it's, as a beginner, you're going to lose. And he lost a lot. And I kept talking to him and coaching him through that same thing. It's like, hey man, you got to learn to lose. You just dust yourself off and go back tomorrow. And then he started to win. And I was like, okay, now you got to learn how to win, because this is a whole different psychology. And
I
so
would his personality has to be so laid back and cool to have lost that much. And then once you get that taste of winning, I mean, I can only imagine.
yeah, it's funny. He is very calm and very collective, and you never really know what he's up to or thinking. He doesn't show his cards. But when he's starting to win, you see he'll always just kind of smirk or like shoot me a glance. And I'm like, you got this, buddy. We actually just went
Love
to
it.
nationals, and he's not yet ranked. This is my super proud dad moment. He's not yet ranked. So he was against a ton of competitors who were ranked. And out of 300 competitors, he finished 39th. And he's not
Wow.
ranked, which is like, even his coach was like, what just happened? So he upset a lot of people who actually outranked him, which was
Listen,
cool.
I love, and I'm happy for you for the proud dad moment. None of my kids play sports, so I don't have the sports proud dad moment. I've got plenty of proud dad moments, but no sports. And it's surprising because I was always in sports. My family's from sports, but none of my kids play sports.
That's so interesting. It's interesting how they went in a different direction, but I think that's cool too. I think, that's the adventure of life, is to find what makes you happy, what makes you tick.
Yeah, absolutely.
So how do you you clearly approach your team building completely different than everybody else, and you do a lot of things different, which i.e. mean better, because to have five teams, or I'm sorry, to have one mega team who are operating in 5 cities, that's a lot of infrastructure, and you just have to be doing a lot of things right. So just walk me through some of that.
So that's a good question. I would probably, the best way I'd put it is we believe in when you find great people that are team players, that you latch on and you bring them on, and we figure out everything else second. So what I mean by that is if I met you and you were just an incredible agent and we just became a great relationship and I felt like you were such a good fit for our team, you're just in a different market. I'm starting to figure out how we can partner together and grow that market. And even that falls into, going back to team building, the support staff. If we find an amazing support person, we will hire the support person and then figure out how to bring on great partners so we can afford that support person. Because at some point running a team, you can't have too many support people. You can't have too much of an overhead. But for me, if we find somebody that is a game changer, it's almost like going back to baseball. You find that incredible utility player or that batting coach or that pitching coach, is you bring on that person and then you go out and get your players. because that person's going to teach them the best way to play the game. So that's how we've grown our team, is we come across amazing people and we bring them on and figure it out step two. So we don't bring on agents, and when we can afford a support person, we go and hire the support person. We go find the support person, which I believe is the foundation of a team. Mm-hmm. And we go find the great agents that want to benefit from the amazing talents and skill sets of that support person. So I don't know if I answered that exactly clearly, but that's how we've grown the team over the years. And while we're at 34 total people across those 5 markets, the biggest challenge has been making sure that your leadership you're able to have leadership in those markets. So our markets are still within a couple hours of each other, and we have multiple team leaders on our team. So the leadership and the mentor to mentee type of relationship with those markets, we want to make sure that we're teaching them and bringing them the most value. So as long as we can provide leadership for those markets, we'll go into a market once we find a great person.
That's such an interesting way to look at it and to approach it. So it sounds like within leadership, you have specific team leads for each of the individual markets. Is that correct?
So we do. We've got a team lead in Charleston. We have, right now we do have a team lead in Wilmington. We don't in Columbia, but Columbia is within an hour of Charlotte. So it's almost, you could almost argue that that's a suburb of Charlotte. And then we've actually got multiple team leaders in Charlotte because that team's the larger pod of our greater team. So we do have multiple leaders, and that evolved because we had agents that gravitated up, were doing the right things, loved to help each other, and they just worked their way into, they're the poster child of what we think an agent should be and how an agent should run their business. And we want them to teach what they've learned. So going back to baseball, it's the great infielder teaching the other infielders the skill set of being a great infielder, or the great batter on hitting curveballs, even just something that simple as we want that person to teach that skill set.
Yeah. It's such a great way to do it too, because it gives everybody an opportunity to bond, because if that person's teaching, it puts them in a leadership role. It's giving them authority, significance. They're able to actually help people. And you're building out more layers than just one person getting some skills, because the skills are not the hard part to acquire. It's getting everybody to gel together in a more cohesive way.
Oh, absolutely. Culture's king for sure.
So within your role within that, what do you do? And let me I'll try to make it a little bit more specific before you dive into the answer. But have you allocated out the role of recruiting, or is that taken care of by somebody on the team? And like, at which point are you pulled in to help and guide and facilitate?
So my role, I still help the agents reel in business. So I go on presentations, listing presentations. I might meet with buyers, might meet with a builder to help bring in a piece of business for them. I see that as shadowing, teaching, but also helping them generate opportunities. I'm a big networker, so I travel as much as I possibly can to other real estate company offices to interact in sales meetings, panels, presentations, mini retreats, you name it. I want to get face to face and find great other team leads and teams to bond with, collaborate and learn from. And I bring back those great ideas to the team for us to implement. Part of my role is overseeing the support staff. So I've got an operations kind of background. So I love working with the operations team on the systems and processes to be able to run smoothly. So we can go from 34 people to 40 people and not hit speed bumps or stumble in any way, shape, or form. And then I work with the sales team leaders to help them kind of continue the momentum of what we did with them when they started. Yeah. Is how can they continue that? So like, for instance, Charleston, I'll work with Amy Byrne, who is our team lead there. We've got a total, if you count me there, 7 agents in Charleston already. And those agents becoming successful is a big passion for us, and how to help Amy help them become successful. That's part of my role. So I love doing that. That's going back to the team building piece, is I love to help the senior agents or the team leaders be better mentors and teachers. And then I travel. That's my collaboration learning / there's a little bit of rainmaking in there, because I know relationships across the country generate those relationships that generate opportunities in the future.
Yeah, I'm on the same page with you. And I think too, within all of that, success leaves clues. And so when you're talking to other leaders who have built teams or are trying to build teams, you can glean so much from what they're doing, what they haven't done, and the things that they did and they made mistakes doing. And so you can skip a lot of pains just by being around those people. And you're right, the beautiful byproduct is name recognition. When their client or somebody on their team is like, hey, who do you know in Charlotte? It's like immediately, oh, call Andy. He'll got you covered. And that whole relationship happens. It's funny, and not dissimilar, but my curiosity as to, there's 2.5 million agents in the nation, and there's a small subset of 1%. And it's, well, what are they doing different? And how can I get in front of them and pick their brains and learn? And so that's where this podcast came about. I'm insanely curious, and everybody's doing it a little bit different, but success leaves clues. And there's so many incredible patterns that I'm picking up from the way people look for a referral agent, or how they approach building their team, or whatever it is, finance, budget, marketing. It's staggering to me, the similarities and the patterns, like your ability to network. Francie's superpower is that. Lindsay down in Austin, that's her superpower. And it catapults these companies in such a cool way, and very fast.
Well, and how much you can learn from each other, whether you're an individual agent, a small team of 3 or 4, or a team of 34.
Yeah.
You absolutely can learn so much from each other. And especially when you're large, the way we view it is, we can put one little idea across 34 people, and we feel like we can get more bang for that idea because it's across so many more people.
Yeah.
I love that. We've been doing it for so many years, and it's never failed to bring great ideas, great relationships, and ultimately referral business at the end of the day too.
Yeah.
It's like a icing on the cake.
It is. And it's kind of the cool byproduct is you build these relationships, you collaborate, and you share ideas. They're giving to you equally and proportionally what you're giving to them. And then this amazing byproduct, it's like working with clients. The byproduct is you help them buy or sell a home. And so it's the same thing. The thing that I found and have been finding really interesting with this podcast is talking to somebody like you who has 34 people, and I'm in San Francisco. It's a 7 by 7 mile footprint. So it's tiny. It's smaller than Disney's parking lot. And the saturation of teams, you can do it. You don't need to, because we're at a very high price point and not a lot of things trade. And so I have one team, but if I learned your efficiencies to run a 34 person team and apply that to my team, we're like a Ferrari cruising at 30 miles an hour, and it can go way, way faster at any point. And that's what I've been applying and putting back into play into my business. So that's been a fun iteration for me.
Well, even learning other people's markets, just like you said, 7 by 7 and not as much, just learning that stuff is so valuable. It really goes a long ways to navigating your own market.
For you and for networking and going around to the different brokerages and locations, where's the biggest feeder markets for you in the Carolinas?
So our biggest feeder markets as of right now, the DMV area, so Washington, D.C. and surrounding areas is a big feeder for the Carolinas. the entire Northeast is a big feeder area, but specifically DMV. That's why I'm actually outside of Boston right now. We've been the last few days here networking at the Boston Compass offices. Boston's a big feeder for us, a little bit for Charlotte, tremendously for Charleston. Surprisingly, Seattle is a big feeder for Charleston, not necessarily the other Carolina cities we're in, but Charleston. And that's mainly because Boeing is headquartered in both. So they have such they're headquartered in Seattle, but they have a massive facility in Charleston. So there's so much of a feeder between cities that it's an opportunity to get in front of those Seattle agents and say, do you have clients at Boeing? To put those feelers out that you have you have an extension of your Compass team in Charleston, and you can get referral business before the relocation ever happens. It's a way to get referrals early in the process of relocation. Atlanta is a great mover between Charlotte, Raleigh. I'll name just a couple more. Raleigh is a big mover between Charlotte and Raleigh. Raleigh's vacation home kind of is the Outer Banks or Wilmington, which is one of the reasons we're in Wilmington. Charleston's secondary home market, or not Charleston, Charlotte's is Charleston, kind of the South Carolina coast.
Yep.
Excuse me.
No problem.
So that's why we kind of went to the coast in the beginning.
Yeah.
Was because Charlotte's such a growing, when people buy their second homes, it's usually the Carolina coast. So
Interesting.
So I named off a lot of them. The Carolinas is growing extremely fast.
Yeah.
So we're trying to get to the markets that our clients are moving to. And that's kind of why we started to expand to those markets.
It's brilliant. I mean, it's very Jeff Bezos is basically build it, ride it, and wait for the wave to come. And so if you're there in time for the wave, you can obviously ride it in. And it's not dissimilar. And you find it with a lot of cities that they organically have a natural feeder from another location.
Mm-hmm.
And especially on the East Coast, you have the people who are leaving either high taxes or the winters, and they're moving to a southern state. And if they don't want to go for Florida, they're looking for other options. And so it totally makes sense as to that structure there. And so let's go back to, you said very early on, authenticity, which I think is so important, especially in our business. And then additionally, there's a value add. So if you're sitting on a panel or showing up and making connections with agents in different markets, how are you approaching it? Because not dissimilar to real estate, if you just continue to hammer on people, hey, do you have a client? Are you ready to buy or sell? You're going to turn them off. And so how do you more elegantly approach, hey, let me help you do this?
Well, I would say we don't ever ask for business. We're the opposite of what so many coaches teach, which is ask for the business. We do not. We want to provide so much value that people naturally think of us for a certain product area knowledge piece. We want to be thought of that way. So we want to be givers. Going back to kind of the Go Giver book, we want to be givers and help people. And we feel like any rewards of that, first off, there's the rewards of just being that person. Our whole team is that way. We want to help people. Yeah. And I do think the icing on the cake is so many people appreciate that. They think about that and don't lose sight of how much you help them. So when we're on panels, we just authentically are teaching what we know works, what we know has not worked for us. And I'm not sure everybody does that. Sometimes being on panels is about talking about what you do and who you are and how great you are versus what works and where did you fail. I'd love to talk about all the things we did wrong. We've been a team for over 20 years. And so there's a lot of things we did wrong over those years. And I feel like that authenticity also sends the message that I think what they're saying is not only real, but they would also be authentic and trustworthy to my clients that we're going to refer to them. And so they're excited to refer clients to us because they like us as people. So we're there to just learn, open up the hood, show them everything we possibly do. They can come down to Charlotte, Charleston. We will sit with them and share anything. We've always been that way. And we're in a relationship business, just like your past clients. You've got clients and you want to build relationships to where they think of you when they think of real estate. And we want to help them with anything: painters, fencing companies, pediatricians, or just picking up the newspaper off the front sidewalk if they're out of town. We want to do that so they think of us when their friends are moving and selling. So I don't know if that answered that authenticity question, but
It
that's
it
us.
did, absolutely. And it's very, I mean, no one wants to say, "Hey, we fumbled over here and made this huge mistake," but a lot of people need to hear that because they're sometimes just making that same mistake. And then if they're like, "Hey, but one, you can turn things around by doing X, Y, and Z, and two, that's not your identity. Like, I was there and now I'm here." And you can too. And sometimes I think, and I know in my life, sometimes you just need the example of how to get out of this situation. And it goes very back to sports. It's like, just because you lost the game doesn't make you a loser. You just happen to lose the game.
Absolutely. When I know this, we all love the person who can authentically laugh at themselves,
Yeah.
be very humble, tell their failures. 15 years ago, I had a client in the car and I ran out of gas at a traffic light, showing them, driving them to show houses. So there's a lot of failures. We go around the team whenever we do team cocktails, and you have to tell your failures of the last month. Whether you walked around in heels on hardwood floors and put dimples on the hardwood floors,
Oh, Jesus.
well, we're replacing someone's hardwood floors. Those things are, to me, create that culture of authenticity, and we all learn quicker, you share quicker, and it makes for a better, happier environment.
It's so true. You gave me this amazing flashback. Years and years and years ago, I was downtown San Francisco walking, and there was a woman at the other end of the block. It was just her and I walking towards each other, and she was going to work dressed in a skirt, like very nice, very elegant, and she tripped and kind of like stumbled a few steps forward, looked directly at me, paused, stopped, and took a bow. And I laughed, like I was laughing. And I thought that was such an amazing way to handle that. And it's like, and that was it. Like it was a moment in time that has always stuck with me of, you're going to stumble. How are you going to handle it? What are you going to do with that? And how are you going to move forward?
That is so true. I love people that just lose. They just lose it laughing when they do something crazy, silly that everybody sees it. They don't get embarrassed. They don't go hide. They just start laughing. And that's the authentic people we want to work with.
That's great. I mean, and as a team lead too, you're not perfect. You're going to you're going to make a lot of mistakes. And to be vulnerable, to ask for help, either pick up the phone and call another team lead of like, "Hey, I'm having this major challenge, or I don't know how to approach this." But if you go into denial or push it away, you're never going to come up with that solution. And so I think it's great. I think it's great that you put that out there and you share it. And it's obviously served you very well because you've built one heck of a business.
It's certainly been fun. Certainly been fun.
As it should be.
And that's what we want. Yeah, we want to wake up every day and have fun.
Yeah, nobody wants to wake up every day and just be like, I have to go to work. I have to go deal with this. Like, yeah, I want to go and have fun. I want to do this thing. I get to build this new thing and this new iteration of it. You mentioned that you have a playbook for agents. Tell me a little bit about that.
So years ago, really 10 years ago, a gentleman on our team, he's actually our sales manager for the Charlotte team, Ben Lastra. So Ben came to our team and he was the ultimate like blank canvas that excited for life, wanted to have fun, wanted to build a career, moved from the DMV area down there, so did not have a sphere of influence. And when he joined us, he wanted to learn everything he could. He constantly say, "Hey, Shawn, what should I do next? What should I do now? They said this, what should I say?" And so we would teach, and it was exciting. Going back to baseball, it was exciting to have that rookie there asking the veteran player what to do. So you just want to help them be successful because they're so humble. They're willing to ask. They're not acting big time. And everything that I told him to do, he did it. And his first year sold 42 homes. And so what we did is we decided when we started, we never really brought on new-ish agents to the team. We always had senior agents. But we've started bringing on a handful here and there, maybe 5 to 10 of the 34 might be new-ish, 1 to 3 years. And those agents, we want to teach exactly what to do, but it's you can only take so many phone calls throughout the day of what to do. What should I say on this? What should I do now? Who should I call? What should I do today? So we put a book together. It's no different than an organizer that has your calendar, your weekly. It's everything you would do. We just think if you use this book, it has all the core activities of building relationships, keeping in touch with your relationships, organizing your stage, so to speak. So your open houses, your buyer seminars, your client events, reminds you to get face to face. We all sit here and say, yeah, I should get to face to face. I should make more sphere of influence phone calls, emails, touches, text. It has it all built in. You can write down the name, who you're calling, what you're calling about. As you're calling them, it has boxes for you to check off. Did you get their birthday, phone number, email, address? So your database is totally full. So all the core tasks that if you, Shawn, you've been doing it a while, if you mastered these 5 or 6 areas, and they're all the things that have been the core of what we all built our business on. Being great at relationships and keeping in touch and nurturing those relationships. This organizer book has everything built in around a calendar and weekly to where the agents don't have to chase shiny objects. They don't have to answer the phone call by, hey, are you looking for more buyer and seller leads? We've got them. We could set up those phone calls. We tell them to ignore all the shiny objects because that's one of our failures. We did great things, but everybody chases shiny objects and think you can get rich right around the corner. So this organizer is a book that we put together. We provide all our agents. We do weekly meetings that go over how to use it. What does this section mean? Just to teach the habits that you, I, and a lot of agents that have gotten finally to a point to where you're getting a lot of referral business. That if we cut out all the fat, this is the meat. We cut out all the fat, and it's built into an organizer.
Love it. So simple. And you're right. There's so many shiny objects.
There really is. And I'll send you a copy of it. Would love your thoughts on it. There's an agent version. There's an agent version and there's a team leader version. So the team leaders version is similar, but it also has what additional things team leaders should do, things that I would forget to do on a regular basis that I know are so important to running a team on a regular basis. Those nurturing relationship type of aspects.
I would love to see it. And I will be honest, that's the transition going from agent to team lead was really hard for me. And it was I don't have that background of managing and running teams. And so it took a lot of training and understanding for me to get to that point. And I made a ton of mistakes along the way. So I would love to see your organization book on that.
Happy to share it.
Yeah. And I feel like too, with agents who are actively boots on the ground, it's not only the shiny object. The commission decoupling has been a massive, massive distraction, and it's derailed so many people. And I go back and I'm thinking about our early part of our conversation with the rookie who's excited of like, okay, this is new. What do I have to do? Versus the old guard who are like, no, how could we just keep maintaining it, doing it this way? And I've been in 1,000 meetings where the old guard is adamant on trying to figure out how to keep it to stay the same, and it's not. Just you got to just move forward. So we're bombarded, and within our business, and even on social media and TV and news and everything else that's happening. It's really hard to kind of stop and go back to the basics. I studied martial arts for a number of years, and I had an old school teacher, Mr. Chen, and every day we would go in, and I was always excited to learn the new crazy, flowery, exciting move. And every day he'd be like, "Okay, today we're going to work on the basic punch." And I was like, and it was always such a letdown. All right, today we're going to work on the basic kick. And you're like, damn it, I want to learn this other fancy thing today. But it was all those basics that I won the most tournaments with. It wasn't all the fancy new widget. It's you just do the basic stuff. If I enjoy
So
that.
true. That's so true. I feel like I'm Mr. Chin with our GSD book and teaching the agents, hey, did you make those calls? Oh my God, making phone calls. It's going to pay off. Just stick to it.
Yeah.
Stick to it. It's going to pay off.
It's so true. And it's like one of those, it's like working out, you're not going to see results today. You won't see them tomorrow, but they'll start showing up in a week, in 2 weeks, in a month, a year, 2 years. You'll be transformed. You just keep chipping away at it and keep doing it. The little things. Yeah. So, and I love that you had the organization and your team had the organization to put it all together into a handbook. And there's absolutely no way of having 34 people who are all moving in the same direction that you don't have a highly organized back end system for them to all work from. It's very clear and obviously abundant to me.
Well, and finding the right operations people to keep that where it is and keep evolving it and turning it into something special. I can't say enough about our operations team. They are awesome.
I bet. I mean, there's no way I just know business, and there's no way you'd be able to step away and travel and take care of what you need to if you don't have the people supporting you doing what they're needing to do, the autonomy to do it and the permission to do it, but also the systems and structure. So everybody's doing it on the same level of standard. That's definitely not by accident.
It has been a lot of work. As I said, we're a team over 20 years, and I have a operations mindset. That was kind of my skill set. I've learned to be a salesperson, or I'd not even say a salesperson. I learned to be an extrovert. I was a lot more of an introvert. Even playing baseball, I was the quiet guy that was just out there performing. If someone said, "Hey, someone speak up," I wasn't the player speaking up, getting the rest of the team rah, rah, rah. But here I am running a 34-person team. In real estate, you got to get out of that your comfort zone of being behind the scenes. You're going to sell houses. You got to get in front of sellers. You got to be in uncomfortable situations. You got to have difficult conversations. And that's more of the learned skill. That operations side is building it and then getting to a point to where you find the perfect people to take it to the next level. We've been very fortunate for that over the years. And that goes back to the lifting the hood. We're willing to share anything with regards to processes, systems, anything to do with how we run our team. And it works for 3 people or it works for 34 people.
I'm so curious, why real estate? Because it clearly is sales, and it's clearly getting in front of people and putting yourself out there and being uncomfortable if that's not your natural default.
So I was comfortable talking to people, but it drained me. Like they say, introverts get drained by that social extrovert type of activities. So I was around, when I got done playing baseball, I was around real estate. So I was around the agents that were very successful. And I was also from baseball. So going back to professional baseball, if you didn't perform, you didn't play. If you didn't perform, you didn't move up and you didn't make more money. Your living was on performance. So I wanted a career that was, the harder I worked, I benefited from. I didn't want to get in a corporate ladder to where I could be busting my butt and the guy above me is not as talented, not as good, not working as hard, and I'm sitting in a corporate ladder. I'm stuck.
Yeah, true.
And in baseball, that wasn't the case. If you performed well, you're going to step over at some point. You're going to elevate over the next player because it's about winning. So fast forward to real estate. I just happened to be around real estate. I got offered a position in the financial industry, and the trial period was such a low pay. And this is a ways back because I've been doing it a little while. The income that you would make was so low. I was just like, that just doesn't seem. It doesn't seem like the direction or I can do it. So around real estate, it was who you knew. It was how much they liked you. Do you keep in touch? Mm. The real estate transaction and knowledge piece was almost secondary. It was a relationship business, and then it would just happen to be wrapped around real estate. And I'm from Charlotte. That's where I live part-time. I'm born and raised there. I know a lot of people. I love everything about Charlotte. And I thought, man, I know people. I grew up here playing baseball my whole life. I think I've got the relationships. I think I can do something with this. And so getting out of my comfort zone of talking real estate and getting in front of people and having to convince them and educate them and lead them to the right direction to achieve their goals just what became a learned skill. It was something I had to get out of my own way to learn that. So fast forward, I was in real estate, sold. I'm 24 years now, 34 agents, and I love doing it. I love doing it. At this point, I love coming on and talking to people and helping. It's all about helping, and I'm very comfortable helping people. So that makes being in front of people and talking a lot more palatable if I know I'm helping people.
That's so fascinating. We're similar. It's funny, on all the personality tests, I'm literally right on the border of being introvert, extrovert. So I'm like 50-50. And so some days I don't want to talk to anybody, and other days I'm doing this. So, but it's similar to you. It's all a learned skill.
Well, this seems like what you're doing seems so much fun. Just to ask questions, let people talk, and what you can glean and from them, and it just seems like it would be so much fun.
It's really it's funny. I'm not, and I've never been a school person. I don't like sitting in classrooms. I don't learn in that style. But if I'm interested in a topic, I'm almost obsessive about learning as much as I can about it. And if you haven't noticed, I keep looking down because I write notes the whole time. And then I will put them into an email, and then I talk to them about my team about the areas we can immediately improve our business. And so for me, this has been the greatest college degree I could have ever have gotten. And so I love it. Like I actually love this part, and I forget people are going to watch it, and I forget it's going to be consumed, but I get lost in what you're saying, and I'm like, oh, that's fascinating. That's interesting. I can use this piece, or I need to go back and reevaluate this thing because I think we're off course in this area. And so it's been it's been a hard journey, as I shared before we started recording, because there's a lot of moving parts that I'm not that good at, on the back end, which the team has to kind of fill those gaps. But this has been such a great, cool experience. And it's not dissimilar from what you're doing of, hopping on a plane and popping into a different market and learning and sharing what you know with other people, in in their business. So it's been cool. It's been fun.
Well, and so many times when when I'm explaining our team, those 3-person team or the 5-person team or even a 10-person team thinks, man, 34 people, it's no different than 10. It's just, if the systems and processes are in place,
exactly,
it's find great people. And why wouldn't you bring on a great person that's going to bring culture, bring help, bring camaraderie, collaboration? You grow faster together. Yeah. It just makes more sense. And so it's easy. And I know how much work has to go into what it takes to run a great podcast. And as much as I'm in the other role, as I'm sitting there going, man, that seems like it's so much, even though I want to do it so bad. but I'm sure step by step, you can get there and run a great podcast. And so there's so much I could learn from you on what you're doing here.
You have
I'm
an open
fascinated by
invite.
it.
Honestly, you
Okay.
have an open invite. Anytime you want to see like the back end, I'm happy to share it with you. It's not
Well,
hard. It's having, to your point earlier, it's just having the right organization to keep track of where everything is in production at any one point, and then having standards and systems. That's all it is.
well, see, I don't see the back end there, but I will tell you this, the automation of the process to get your guest ready is a very fine oiled machine.
Oh, thank you.
It's done extremely well. I'm fascinated by the way it's done. So I've been very impressed. I don't know anything on the back end of the editing and cutting things out. That makes me tired thinking about it.
Me too.
And the number of people and the specialists you need for that. But I'm sure again, it's bite size, one bite at a time, and you can build something like that.
Shout out to Steve Blank, who does all my editing and everything on the back end. He does an amazing job. But it's similar to, 34 team. It's break it down into digestible chunks. You didn't start with a 34 person team, right?
No,
You got to build.
so we were 10 to 14 agents for a long, long time. I'd say probably the first 5 years. Then we started our team, 4 to 5 years. We started our team. We went to about 6 agents pretty quick. Then a few years, then we went to 12 ish. And it was all organic. It's people who had worked with us, liked how we worked, liked the people on the team and wanted to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Once we got to 13, we just kind of stayed there. And that's when we learned I would say the skill, because it's worked very well for us, is the skill of finding an incredible support person allows for so much growth. And so we love bringing on great support people. If we found one tomorrow, we would literally bring them on and figure out where they're going to be. We would just keep fine tuning everybody's role to where everybody gets to focus on less total, but get better at those tasks. They'd have a better life, and we'd be able to bring on more great agents that we love to work with to benefit from it. So
And that's fascinating. And that's one thing that I found with a lot of high performing agents who run high performing teams is if they find that right key player, they will acquire them. And then the other piece is they'll build the plane as they're flying it. Like they'll make decisions and then figure out how to execute. Whereas people who noodle on it too much, they work on how do I execute it so much to the point is they lose the opportunity and they never actually execute. And so there's something to be said about just seeing an opportunity, taking it, and then building everything around it, which is hard. It's a hard leap of faith to do.
and it's probably the number one, I think, takeaway that if I had everybody to take away something, that would be it, because it was 10 to 12 years in before we did that. In fact, we were forced to do it. We wanted an amazing operations person, and they worked at our previous company, and we were told hands off of them. And we hands off, and then they were about to leave. But the week before they were leaving our previous company, we had hired somebody for that role. And so then once they were leaving, that company called and said, hey, if you want them, they're about to leave, go to a different real estate firm. We reached out. We had no position for them. We could not afford, we afford them. We could, but it wouldn't have. Most profitability models or financial people say, don't do it. Mm-hmm. We did it. And then we figured out everything afterwards. And it's been it was the best move we've ever made. Was you find the right people, you then grow, you grab them and figure out everything else. And so It's
Yeah.
worked for us. And if someone could do that from get go, from being an individual agent, very successful, starting a team or being a 3-person team, I would go find that right person and bring them on. Take the 50,000 a year or whatever it is
Yeah.
reduction in your take home pay to bring that person on. One, they're going to make your life better, which is going to bring you 50,000 of value. They're going to make you more efficient. So you're probably going to sell more homes. That's going to offset the 50,000 cost.
Right.
Or you're going to have so much support that you're going to attract the people who want that support. Those great agents that don't like managing support and need support, they're going to come on, and that's going to more than offset having that great person. And that was the mentality. And so one support person maybe allowed us to bring on 3 or 4 amazing, or even 5 amazing agents. And that's how we're at 34 at this point.
And that's always the hard part, is that leap of faith of when you really find that right person, life gets better on the other side of it. But it's really scary because better is not always quantifiable. But when the agents who are being supported by that person are then performing better, you naturally have more sales virtue of that. And they have more time to be in the field. You have more time to do what you're good at. But it's so that I get it. That leap of faith, that it's almost like that first hire that you ever make. That is the hardest blind leap that you'll have to take.
It really is. But the funny thing about it, you think about, I use $50,000 as just a general idea. If it's 50,000, and let's say that's 4 sales for me. Can I sell 4 more houses this year by bringing on this incredible person that can show homes, open doors, do operations, send emails, whatever it is that I have them doing closing, transaction, listing management? Absolutely. So then I take the leap, and then I just put it on myself. Once you're running a team, it's just what people can I bring on that will benefit so much that their business will go from 20 sales a year to 25 sales, that they made more money, the team made more money. We all get to utilize the great services of this amazing person. Our culture's better. It's just a win-win. The 50,000 is nothing. So that step backwards really isn't very far of a step backwards. It's like, how many steps forward are you taking? Are you taking 4 or are you taking 10?
Yeah. It's hard. And I totally, and I'm like having flashbacks in my first hire of like cold sweats and staying up late. I'm like, oh my God, should I do this? Should I not do this? But I did it. I made my first hire 3 years in, and I hired them about mid-year. And by the end of that year, I had doubled my sales. And the following year, I doubled again. And the following year, I doubled again. And so obviously that was the best decision that I had ever made. But that it being on the precipice of making that decision, my God, that was painful. It was so hard.
It is, by far.
When you were scaling in the early days, was there a tipping point where the machine ran a little bit better? Where, like when you go from one person, when you go from 0 to 1, they're building a lot for everything from scratch, and then you bring on an agent, and then you're building them into your systems, and you're building a building. Is there kind of a point where, let's say your 5th hire or 10th hire, where it kind of like it tips and the machine just starts to run a little bit easier with more efficiency that you have found?
I would say once you have found the right number of support for us, the right number of support people that you truly have defined the roles. So what I mean by that is, you as an individual agent, you hired your first assistant, and that person wore a lot of hats. It was all the hats that Shawn didn't want to wear or shouldn't wear. They wore so many hats. And then when you bring on number 2, you broke that first person's hats into 2 hats, and then you brought on number 3, and at some point now they were organized with their work every day. Mm-hmm. And number 2 was organized, and number 3 was organized. Once they got organized, versus us having assistants that wear a lot of hats and they're just running around like a chicken with its head cut off. We're all doing a lot of work, but it's a little bit of chaos.
Yeah.
When it's organized, when that support team is organized, that would be where I'd say it's a machine that can take off as much as you want. So whether I can dial that into it's a 5 agent to 1 support staff ratio, we're probably we're 6 to 34. So a little over 5 agents to 1 support person. Did we have 5 agents to 1? We probably had 2 support people for the 5 agents in the beginning, because you can't have one person wearing all those many hats that your person wore for you for 5 people. There's just too much running all over the place. They just no way they can get it done. Too much multitasking. So to me, once I was able to take the support staff and organize them, the skyscraper could build as big as it wanted to. So I like to use the analogy that the support staff is the foundation. And once the piers and everything are set up, organized, you can build the skyscraper as big as you want to. Mm-hmm. And so that's my answer to that. I know that's a little bit of a gray area, but once we got listing manager, closing manager, operations, showing assistant, and everybody had a key role, it was now how many agents can we bring on that they can handle, because they're more focused. If you're a showing agent and that's all you do is you're just a showing agent, or you're a closing manager, you're not having to go to houses, install signs, do photography, create flyers. You're just from contract to close. And that allowed us to take off as when our support people were very defined and efficient.
That was a great answer. And I know I kind of ask a pigeonhole question, but it's such a fascinating way to look at it. And it absolutely makes sense, where you have to have a little bit more support in the beginning until everybody's defined with the ratios, then it can scale.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part. It's kind of, building the engine to go faster, so it's extremely efficient, even though you don't have all those people in place. And so at that point, you have to go a little bit heavier on the support side until you can pull in more agents.
Yeah. And I think one of the keys there, Shawn, is your person. Like if an individual agent had the one and brought on more agents, to a certain extent, that team leader's in a support role as well.
Sure.
So you really have 2 support people. You have your all-around assistant. You've got the team leader. Maybe the team leader is the operations, and the support person is the showing assistant or the listing manager. You really have it. You, unfortunately, as the team leader, are going to carry more weight in the beginning of that to make the numbers work. But once you get that organized, the sky's the limit. If you had the right people in that organized structure.
Yeah.
At least for us, that's how it's worked well for us.
Yeah. And I mean, it's all the trial and error and put these things into play and see what happens. What's the result? Is it close to what you're after? If it's not, make some adjustments and go from there. That's all you can do. Andy, this has been amazing. I really enjoyed the journey and learning from you. I would love to have you come on in the future. I know you're busy, obviously running a big team, but you're welcome back at any point. And in addition to, we have an inner circle group where all the past guests of the show, we meet up twice a month. So I will send you the invite to that, and I'd love to have you be a part of it.
Oh, please. I'd love to be a part of it. You let me know anytime. I love to collaborate, interact, build relationships. I'd love to come back. Certainly would love to come to the twice a month. That sounds awesome.
Cool. Well, I'll send you that invite. So thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Shawn.